Welcome back, San Diego. We are here today in the beautiful Gaslamp district of San Diego, more specifically in the beautiful office of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, California, Gaslamp district. This is our home office where Tammy K and I do all of our shenanigans, real estate wise, and then some, if you will. Today, we are here. It's a beautiful day today, as always. You can't go wrong, which is why we pay the sunshine tax. But we have a very special guest today. As you all know, on Under Contract, we discuss everything under contract, whether that's a commitment you've made to yourself, your health, financially, personally, in the real estate sense, whatever it is that you've committed to yourself, it's under contract. And so today we are talking about something very, 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 very serious, and a very serious issue, not just in our country, but in the world. And Tammy K and I, my trusted partner over here, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Yes. We're here today with a special guest. As you all know, we have a series called Moving On. And that series documents the journey of those who are going through a transition in their life. Literally moving on from one chapter to the next, whether it's you're divorced and you have to sell your home and you have to buy a home, or if you're going from renting to owning, if you're going from retiring and you want to make San Diego home. Whatever your moving on is, we do have a series here called Moving On, and we document the journeys of those who we decide to work with. And a lot of times we will get submissions sent in to us that are tear-jerking. We will oftentimes get submissions sent to us that cause us to pause and reflect on our own lives and say, oh my gosh, we don't have it that bad. And then there are happy submissions that we get who are first-time home buyers, and they're just so excited to become a homeowner. So we receive a plethora. That's a big word for this time of the day. We receive a plethora of inquiries and submissions, and we don't oftentimes work with everyone. We can't work with everyone, but every now and again, a story and a woman or a man that we interview will hit our heart and hit it hard. And today we have a guest. Her name is Erin. I'm sorry. I almost said Erin Andrews. I'm thinking sports.
It's okay.
What the heck?
You know, it all sounds the same, right?
Erin Andrews, Gray, whatever. It's all the same.
That lady.
That person. We have Amy Andrews on today, and she is going to talk about human trafficking and brain injury, to be specific. But Tammy, before we dive into that, what are your thoughts about this? I know when you and I interviewed Amy on the phone about a week and a half ago, we both, after completing our call, were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. It's, in another life of mine, that could have happened.
Yeah.
And it hits home with me in a lot of ways, and we'll get around to that at another podcast.
Yeah.
But it hits home. It hits really close. So it's something that I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about, because I think making people more aware that are not aware is very important, especially in where we're at. I mean, look at us. We're on the border, you know. Not that it doesn't happen everywhere, because we know it does, but we're right here. It's so easy for them to do what they do, unfortunately. So,
and I know that, again, you know, oftentimes when we come across a submission, you know, we read the details and we're like, whoa. And then once we interview them, we're like, whoa, because there's so much more. You guys, you know, in real estate, it's so transactional, right? It's about two parties, one on each side, mutually agreeing to enter into contract to either purchase or sell a home. It's pretty simple. And we forget that there are human beings on the other side, which is why we, as a team at Moving On, are different. It's not about the transaction. Yes, that's part of it. However, we really focus on the human being behind the reason why they wrote in to ask for help, which is very, very compelling. And that keeps the realness, that keeps the reality, that keeps the human factor alive in that transaction, because at the end of the day, they're human beings and they're going through something. They're going through a journey. They're, you know, and I like to think of it this way. Their perceived mess is truly their message. Right? They can turn a mess into a message. Right. And I think that's what you and I walked away from that day when we spoke with Amy. And we're excited to have you as a guest.
Well, thank you.
To say that you're colorful is probably putting it mildly. We can't miss you for sure.
Nope,
So
Colors everywhere.
I love that you are just completely 1000% authentic in you,
Yes,
between
yes.
the hair color, your tattoos, how you carry on your life, how you are, who you are. So welcome. We are so excited to have you, and we cannot wait to hear just like a snippet of what you have to say regarding these very serious issues. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to say that it's really an honor. And I say that not just because, I did my homework and I found out you guys are really cool, but because of the words that you're using. So I am human. I'm humane. I'm humanity. That's my motto. I like to think of every interaction that I have with a human being as an opportunity to translate love. I lived so long without it that when I was able to harness that emotion, that feeling, the capacity to be able to translate that to another human being who has never experienced it, that's when I learned how to be alive. And so I promised myself, I gave myself a contract that I would spend the rest of my life doing exactly that. Because when you've been on the other side of freedom, when you've been on the side of, I don't have any hope, when you find that place again, you go, you know what? I think I'll stay here. I'm not going to go back there. Some people struggle with it. I didn't. It was a decision that I made, and I make that decision every single day to be happy and joyful and try my hardest to get everyone else around me to be happy and joyful, which includes making silly faces and ridiculously crazy statements and shaving off half my hair. Telling people because I'm in my prior career, I was a public speaker, and I would do laughter exercises, make the audience laugh for no apparent reason. I don't know if you had a chance to watch my speech, but that's one of the things that I like to incorporate is laughter. Patch Adams is one of my mentors and heroes. And he says, the more wild you look, the more free you are. And so I figure if I make people laugh and I look crazy, then I'm adding a few years onto their life,
Yeah.
It's interesting
I like
because in our society, and I talked about this on a previous podcast, actually, we are so governed by what society deems we should be. And we are so regulated by what they require of us. And as women, and Tammy and I have discussed this previously, you have to look a certain way, you have to behave a certain way, you have to talk a certain way. And God forbid if you're a woman and you have a voice and a powerful voice and an opinion and you and you hustle your ass off like no other, you're a bitch, right? So I find it very freeing and I find it very liberating that you just don't give a fuck.
I don't. I truly don't.
And if you're offended by F-bombs, I'm going to apologize again because I'd say them a lot.
I'm going to tell you, I already wrote on my Facebook page, if you're offended by words and phrases, I just suggest you don't tune in because guess what? This is my life. This is my story. And these two ladies have been gracious enough to open their space to me. And guess what? They don't fucking care either. So guess what? You're going to have to just deal with it. But the other side of that, though, where I'm going to kind of bring in, this is where my public speaking skills come in, right?
The segue.
We're going to go in here to this part about brain injury. There was a point in time where I was not really even able to communicate. I went from being a keynote speaker and training law enforcement and all kinds of social workers and going all over the United States. I mean, congressional records, and I'm in a book right next to Jimmy Carter, and rest in peace, Kathleen Mitchell, who just passed away, one of the 4 leaders of this movement. And I got to a place where I couldn't really express myself. All I could do was scream and cuss people out and be erratic and crazy, as people would say the behavior was crazy. A lot of people thought it was a mental health condition, all these other things, right? But I knew that it wasn't. I just could not quite explain what it was. I knew what it wasn't, but I didn't know what it was. That part of my journey is something that I don't think this is a good forum for just yet, because we didn't talk about that topic, so I don't want to address that part of it yet.
But nonetheless, it's important.
It is. And so I discovered that by watching the movie Concussion with Will Smith. Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
There was a very similar story that I had with the guy in there. I was like, that feels familiar. And then I'm sure you've heard of Junior Seau. I remembered his story. And then I saw Aaron Hernandez on Netflix, and I went, okay, so here's where the truth comes out, right? I've been choked numerous times to unconsciousness. I've been thrown downstairs. I've been pushed out of moving cars. I've had my head busted open a couple of times, once with a rock, once with a brick. Let's see, what else? I've had my nose broken 5 times. I've had surgery to get it fixed. I mean, and aside from that, my trauma as a child in my own home, I drowned at the age of 2. That was my first actual head injury. So I started thinking, maybe there's something wrong with my brain, because I can't seem to make really good decisions. And you know what? Neither can most of my friends that are survivors of sex trade, they call it sex trade. So I started doing some digging, and I wrote a letter, several letters actually. One of the letters that I wrote was to a doctor out here in San Diego, Dr. Ahmed at Kaizen Brain Center, who actually was one of the people that was working with Dr. Amalu, who is the one that came up with this diagnosis of CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Which, mind you, the sports world, because of the likes of Junior Seau and the Aaron Hernandezes and so on and so forth, are now really taking a look at it and compensating the families as a result.
And in the meantime, nobody cares about the prostitute.
Right.
There's a fine line there, right?
I hate to say it like that. Well, I don't hate to say it like that.
No, there's a lot of truth to that, though. And as rude as this may sound for some of you who don't want to hear this, as rude as it may sound for those of you who are deeply entrenched in that world, it's very real. I cannot tell you how many girlfriends I have that were strippers. Who are putting themselves through medical school or taking care of their kids, who are beaten regularly by their pimp.
And if they weren't, they saw.
Yes, so you turned a blind eye.
Right.
And we can't ignore the white elephant in the room. We cannot, right? And when you have something so traumatic and so tragic that exists in our world, in California alone, right here in San Diego, because as Tammy said, we're right by the border. But forget about that. How about San Diego, where it's happening literally in the gas lamp at any given time on any given corner. I see it.
Absolutely.
You lived it. So walk us through how the human trafficking side, let's just call it what it's called, the sex trade industry. Let's just go there. Let's talk about that for a second. And
I like to call it paid rape.
Paid rape? Okay, well, that's another brutal reality. Trade rape, paid rape, however you want to look at it, right?
I mean, because here's the bottom line, just 2 quick points. One, first of all, I don't believe that it's a human right to have an orgasm. A lot of people think, it's a right for a man to be able. No, I disagree. Sorry, I'm the one that's going to tell you. I don't think that having an orgasm is a human right. Also, when you're talking about sex as work, then you also have to give the work some type of benefit. And if a person doesn't have another line of work to go into, or if there's not a better choice that will provide equal pay or whatever it is, and more, then there's really no choice either. So all of these things are weighted when you're considering the topic of these people want to be here, or so there's this beautiful thing that happens in the mind of those who are sexually exploited, and I say that exactly as I mean it, because we are such a brilliant people who come up with this way of being able to function so that we can live, right? And so we design this society that we live in, that we choose to be here, and we deceive ourselves. And we have spent so long programming others to believe this is what we want. That's one of the things that I had to work really hard on with law enforcement is, look, we don't want to be here. I know I kicked you in the balls and I told you, leave me the fuck alone. But listen, it's because it was you or the guy who was going to kick me in the balls even though I didn't have any. He would have made some or something, Right. And so, it's kind of like the conditioned dog, Pavlov's dog, right? So we have to work to get all of that apart. So
how did you become? When did it all begin for you? In terms of give us the cliff notes in terms of your exposure, your first time experience with that
Daddy
trade.
Issues. Daddy's
issues?
gone.
Okay.
Mommy was not capable of doing the best job in the world, like most moms who are single and pick a bad boyfriend and then have a kid. I don't hate her for it. She didn't get any help.
Yeah.
The system took me away from her because her boyfriend started molesting me, and she had low self-esteem. Her mom was adopted. I mean, it's trauma.
Yeah.
It's a repetitive cycle, and when people don't start addressing, the elephants in the room, there's generational elephants that have been here for a few decades.
We call that generational curses.
Right.
And
that's exactly
it
what
literally
it is.
passed down physiologically, physically,
Absolutely.
emotionally, and mentally. For
Absolutely.
sure.
Will give you the chills. And I will tell you how I know that. Number one is called demethylation of your DNA.
Yes.
It is the Tutsi tribe in Africa. They did a study and they saw that the people who were experiencing the genocide there, their offspring had that trauma imprinted in their DNA. But I will go a step further and say Genesis 28. My grandfather, who I never met in my life, he's Hispanic. He grew up in Guatemala and had a very interesting and very rich life as far as culture and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I finally found him, because I was on a mission to find out who I was,
Right.
because I wasn't this thing, whatever this was, and I know I'm something else, but when I met him, he got on the phone with me and he said, no, he's not Genesis, Deuteronomy 28. He says, Deuteronomy 28. And I'm like,
Okay.
Okay, what's that? And he goes, blessings and curses.
Yep.
I said, okay. He goes, you better know it.
Yep.
That was the first thing he ever said to me. And so then, now that was, a long time ago. I was 23, I think, at the time. But here's the end of that story. My grandfather outlived all of his children who died all alcohol-related deaths, outlived his wife, and then my brother passed away drunk driving.
We did a podcast not too long ago, and we talked about how to manage your mental health during transitions. And we had a special guest, and Tammy actually shared her story on alcoholism. And Tammy can give us a little bit about her background. And the reason I share this to tie it in is because the life in which she lived, she overcame, and she knew she wasn't that person, right? But had to do what she had to do to get by, to make it work. We've all done it, male and female. And the generational curse is very real.
Yes.
We learned somewhere daddy issues. I've had them.
Mommy issues.
We've all had
Neglect,
them.
abandonment.
We've all, medical.
I got a deck of cards one play.
It's like I am the DSM-4 all over again. If you're going to go there. So the generational curse issue is very real. And I had this genetic testing done because of my own health issues, where they tried to figure out if I had the MTHFR gene mutation, which will set you up for a lot of fucked up things in your body, genetically, physiologically, if you have the gene and if it's mutated. Thank God I don't, right? But my point is that generational curse, that was passed down from your family if you have it, right? So that goes alongside with what we're talking about. If you have daddy issues, I had serious daddy issues where I was striving to always, dad, please approve me, please. Mine transferred over into promiscuity. Mine transferred over into eating disorders. Because if I couldn't control my dad's love for me and his approval of me, I'm going to go and I'm going to get the skinniest I could fucking get. And I'm going to date every guy on the planet just so my dad will tell me, oh, honey, he's a good guy or he's not a good guy. But I always chose the ones that were emotionally unavailable and that were physically and verbally abusive, right? My father was never physically or verbally abusive, but he was never there emotionally for me, right? And even when he was there, and even when you kicked ass, it still wasn't good enough.
Right.
Until this day. So whatever it is that
the validation.
Oh, 10,000%. Yeah. And we seek external behaviors. Right. Human trafficking. That sex trade, paid, whatever we want to call it. That is exactly what that is. These women have such a voice, but they don't know that they have a voice because they're being stifled.
You've been beat down so far to the point that you lose your voice.
Let me just say really quick too that it's not always necessarily the pimp either. I'm just going to throw that out there because a lot of times they are also coming from the same trauma. Sure. Most of the violence and the family and the buyer. The buyer is the problem. And I do not hold any punches when it comes to that. And there's a term for it. They call it pimpathy. People say I have that sometimes. I don't really give a shit what people say. I think we've kind of discovered that. I have human nature, and that is to know that I have sons. Yeah. And if I hadn't been where I was at in my life with them, they would have been totally vulnerable to wanting to get cash. And girls, what young man who's coming up with trauma,
Right.
who doesn't have other options? A good friend of mine, Armand King, I don't know if you guys have heard of Paving Great Futures out here in San Diego, but he has a nonprofit out here, and he gets up and he talks about he's got drugs, music, and sports. That's my options. What if I'm not good at any of those?
Right.
What if I got a great smile and I'm good looking and all these girls want me?
Right.
What am I supposed to do? I mean, the reality of it is that there's a demand for something.
Yes.
That's the bottom
The
line.
buyer's there.
Yeah.
Regardless.
The buyer is always there.
Yeah.
Always, always,
Yeah.
always. My friend Autumn Burris made that quote to me. She said, there isn't always a seller, but there's always a buyer.
And that's interesting, and that translates over into the world of stripping,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, Tammy and I had this conversation. I used to date professional athletes, and I was a kept girl. I had a lifestyle. I was young.
Yeah.
It was fun. You're going to travel. You're going to pay me. Oh, great. Let's go.
Yep, why not?
I'll do it. Well, how is that any different than anything else that's going on in this world? There's nothing. The only difference is I wasn't having my head beat in, and I wasn't being pulled downstairs. But there was a buyer.
Absolutely.
But you were definitely not being treasured or valued the way that
No, God
you should
no.
have
God
been.
no. And when I fought it, oh God, was I dismissed. But therein lies the difference.
Right.
If you have a voice and if you have an opinion and you know that you're better than your circumstances and those circumstances don't validate you, you're a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
And go on, because there's another woman waiting for you, waiting in line just for you. And guess what? See you later. Goodbye.
Yep.
And we had this conversation where it took me a little bit, and then I realized I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm more valuable than this, which Tammy can attest to this in her own journey as well, Tammy. I mean, tell us a little bit
Absolutely.
about that journey.
My alcoholism.
Whatever it is you want to share.
Well, I've shared a lot of my alcoholism, but there's parts of my life where same as you, kept for many years. We'll get into that another time, but it's interesting what you said about you're not blaming the pimp or whatever. It's more of a circumstantial thing, and I agree with that. And it's sad because it's almost like it was embedded to them.
Yes.
And then and they probably saw it from their family. It's
Absolutely. Generational.
So it's almost they don't have a choice. Like we didn't have a choice at one point. Right. You didn't have a choice at one point. So I think people need, not that I'm sympathizing, but I think people need to look at that side of things too, because people don't look at that side. And you want to feel sorry for the person that was trafficked, but you also...
and there's also a difference between pimping and trafficking.
Right. There's a difference. But that was an interesting point because I wasn't expecting you to say that at all. Yeah. Not even for 1 second was I expecting you to say that. But it's interesting, and it's not a Stockholm syndrome type thing. Right. You're stating the fact, and it's they have passed down from generation to generation their issues. You have your issues. You were vulnerable. You were easy prey probably. And we were easy prey at one point.
And we were willing.
Very willing.
Oh, yeah.
We were
I was
willing,
definitely willing.
Yeah.
So my first time, I was actually kidnapped, like the movies or whatever.
Right.
I was in Palm Springs, Palm Springs, spring break, 1988. Everybody's wearing their bikinis and riding on motorcycles. And Sonny Bono's the mayor. And I was 13. And, I had already been abused at home, and I was running away by this age, and some guys picked us up, and we're partying at the hotel, and I woke up by myself in the hotel. All my friends were gone. I was in the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know what happened the night before, but I know what happened after that, and I willingly, kind of went along with the whole story that I was going to go to L.A. with them. They said, we're going to come right back. Do you want to ride with us? Sure. Mm-hmm. Why not, Big city. I'm going to get the fuck away from this desert.
Yeah.
And so I went out there with them, and when we got there, they took me to a back house, and I never got to leave from that point on. They're like, oh, well, you're going to work for us now. And there was something in me that, I've always been kind of a fighter. I used to box and everything. I mean, I get the tattoo of my boxing gloves here. I'm hoping to meet Mike Tyson soon. But
Mike, if you're watching this, or if anybody from your crew is watching this.
I've got a proposition, and I want to help heal people, and I want Mike to be a part of that journey with me because he's probably one of the most amazing humans I've met that's been able to sacrifice his own ego to help others.
Yeah.
And I believe that with his experience in life and my experience in life and both of us knowing about head injury and how to heal from that, I think that we could make a huge dent, especially in the trafficking population. Not just that, but in the prison population as well, because a lot of people in prison have head injuries that aren't addressed either. But where was I at? Oh, I was in LA. So these guys get me there, and they're telling me I'm going to work for them, and I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't ask what that means. Doesn't seem like a very good idea. So then they were taking me to these different houses where I'd go into a room, and people would come in and do whatever. And
you were 13?
I was 13. Wow. Yeah. And so one of the things that I remember was, I didn't know what this was then, but now I've learned since then that I was able to keep myself grounded by feeling. I had a texture. So, sometimes a scent can send you off, or, a certain hair color or something. Hope it's not my hair color, but I would get into the back of the car, and I would hear the music, and I would feel the seat, and I would know that I was not in that room anymore.
Oh, so you took yourself to a different place.
Yeah, and
you were blindfolded, obviously.
No, never blindfolded.
Oh.
I just don't remember my brain. I think it was too much trauma for my brain to recall.
So you closed your eyes, you felt the seats, and you went to another place.
Oh, yeah, when I was in the back seat, I went.
Wow.
I came back to myself from wherever I was and realized, okay, I'm safe for this moment. Like, I'm not in that room anymore. I might be going to another one, but right now, okay.
So how has that affected you? Because that's kind of like PTSD.
Oh my God!
Right. So how does that affect you? How did that affect you after that experience going forward and now?
This is one of the things that I'm championing for with brain injury. I don't know. And here's what I mean when I say that. When you look at a brain injury questionnaire, it says, how did you do this before your brain injury? And I go, I don't know.
Right.
I don't have a normal to go to. And so I can't be necessarily rehabilitated, or I can't be reintegrated because I didn't have a place where I started that. So, the whole, everything about brain injury and the trafficking population has to be reimagined. Yeah. Because we don't have an injury point to look at. I mean, there's even such a thing as second impact syndrome. Now, I didn't know that, but I used to tell people, damn, I know I'm not crazy, but I just got whacked in the head, and now I feel even worse. I got whacked in the head again. It's got to be a thing, right? And so then when I started my journey of going through treatments out here, I learned that second impact syndrome was a thing, and I'm like, holy shit, my people, and I'm specifically referring to trafficking survivors, are dying. Yeah. They're giving us a 7-year lifespan. Yeah. Because of the life, but that's bullshit. Yeah. It's because we have brain injury that's gone undiagnosed. Yeah. There's one study, one single study in existence, and it's about the importance of screening for brain injury in trafficked persons. And that was done by a wonderful person who I was able to talk to after I went through my first set of treatments to tell her thank you. I developed my own kind of pilot study when I was going through college. And I never thought that I would have to follow my own protocol, but I did. And I called her to say, hey, thank you, because if you didn't write that, I would have never known what to do. But all of these things that I've learned, Junior, say how. I mean, and bless his family's heart, they have just experienced another passing with his brother. Yeah. But I was able to reach out to Mary. And she is so gentle. I've never met her in person, not yet anyways. Mary, if you're listening, yes, I'm still here. One day we'll meet. But she just encourages me, and it's so tragic to think about all of my friends that I've seen pass away, whether they overdosed on drugs, whether they went back to the life and they were killed by a trick, or, I mean, it's few and far between that we have the wherewithal and the strength and the support that we need, because brain injury tears families apart worse than anything else I've seen, including drugs, because all of that is a symptom. But when your kids don't want to talk to you because you're crazy, I mean, you know, I just was talking to my son. We just started talking again, one of my sons, and I told him if he wants to, I'm getting ready to put a book out, and I told him if you want to put something in there, talk about how we're just now talking.
Yeah.
And how you didn't know what the hell to expect from me because I was so erratic and so crazy. You know, that's part of healing is getting, we don't want no ugly infections to form under this scab that we put over this thing, you know. And so, anyways, long story short, well, it's not really a long story short. It's a long story long, but I'm going to tell you the short version.
Okay.
There's a huge gap in the community of trafficked persons, of people who are suffering from brain injury. And when I started my journey, I decided that I was going to share it with everyone. And so...
And you should, because there needs to be more voices out there. There are voices, but I feel like they're voices all for show. And I mean that in the most endearing way, that they're voices for, look at me, I'm a celebrity, and I'm gonna be a spokesperson for this. Not because they have direct...
lived experience.
Right. I feel like it's for show, and it's for all PR purposes, whereas we need more of a hands-on victim, if you will. But you're not a victim in the sense that, woe is me. You're a true victim. Like, you've experienced this.
Right.
Where that needs to be, I feel like, on the forefront of the seriousness of this.
And to anybody that's listening that is from my walk of life, do you hear this lady? Do you hear her saying keywords like lived experience and stuff? Like, I have not talked to her at all before this moment. So there's people that get it. We just need to start talking more.
Yes.
We need to be heard.
Yeah.
And I've been doing my part, so y'all better speak up. I mean, come on, where y'all at?
And we're going to have information available. We'll have your social media information. We'll have Tammy's social media, my social media available. That if anybody out there needs help or just has questions or wants a resource to go to, you're okay with them reaching out. We can certainly direct them to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do have a question. If you can at least recollect an exact number, how many times do you feel like you were violated sexually?
I can't count.
From the age of 13?
No, it started at 9 at home.
Okay, so from the age of 9.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, multiple, more than multiple.
There's no way for me to be able to
And when
you.
did it actually stop? When you were like, I'm done?
So that's kind of a twofold question. So one morning, my daughter was
And how old were you?
I was 26, I believe. Let's see. In 2000, it was before my birthday. I was born in 74, so someone will do the math. I'm not good at math. I can paint, but my daughter was just born. Now, my sons were already born. My oldest son, who is a veteran and very, very gifted, talented singer, actor, just a beautiful human being. Probably the most chivalrous man I've ever met. Just he won't lie, and he's just a good person, you know. But his father was a pimp. He was my pimp. So I tried to keep him away from his dad, which in hindsight probably wasn't the greatest thing in the world because that wasn't my decision necessarily to make, especially because I was still in life, you know. Right. Like, how am I any better than him, you know? But I did what I did, you know.
But you also know what, though, Amy? When we're in a predicament, and Tammy and I have talked about this, when you are doing the best that you can given what you have, that's what you knew what to do.
Right. And my son told me the same thing, you know, but I wanted to acknowledge that now, looking back, you know, if I was where I'm at now, I would have made a different decision. You know, hindsight. Right, hindsight. It's 2020, as they say. Unless you're me, nothing's 2020, but...
that would be me as well, so it's okay.
So I woke up one morning, and by this time, I thought I had the greatest arrangement in the world. I was in nursing school. I had a pimp who'd never put his hands on me. I was only on the weekends. I had a babysitter for my kids.
Okay, wait. There's actually a schedule to this whole experience. Like, you only do it on the weekends versus the week.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's a real job.
No, it's an arrangement.
So you were able to do what mommy did during the week.
Yep.
And then it was only in a weekend situation.
Yeah, and the guy that was my pimp at the time, he was paying for me to go to nursing school, and he paid my rent. I never saw any money. So, I mean, I don't know how much people were paying for me. I mean, this kind of sound crass, but I never had any complaints.
So how were you compensated aside from your bills being paid?
He bought me a car, put me through nursing school.
Groceries?
No, groceries, I had food stamps.
Oh,
but
Okay.
So he's paying for you to go to nursing school. Not that this makes it any better at
no.
all.
Right.
No,
So he's
I'm
paying for you to go to nursing school. He's basically paying for the essentials for you.
Yes.
And that was it.
And I gave him my weekends.
And he just basically could send you out to whoever he wanted to send you out.
Well, no, it was a hotel arrangement, so he'd be in the next room, and I'd just stay in my room, and he did all the arrangements. So whoever would show up, and that's what it was.
This infuriates me.
Yeah, and the thing is that I was at a point where it was okay. This is cool. I could just use my body. Why not?
You guys, this is something that's going on right fucking now. Like, this is actually happening right now where
More
young
so now.
girls that are 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, who are essentially, the essence of who they are as a child is being robbed of them.
Yes.
And they're being put into
Identity
these
theft.
arrangements. It's just,
to the
these
point where they think
arrangements.
it's okay, like you just said. You were like, oh, it was okay.
And so
I was okay with it.
Right.
But
one morning I woke up.
It's your survival instinct.
And I had to forgive myself for that.
Ugh.
But one morning I woke up and I looked over at my infant daughter and I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna be out there. Oh no, she's not. What the fuck am I thinking? Okay, that's it. I don't know what the fuck else I'm gonna do. I don't know what this is gonna look like, but this is it. This stops. This is not. And it kind of baked me to look at myself and go, how come it's okay for me though?
Right.
Like, why is it okay for me to do
not
this,
for
but
her?
she
Right.
can't do it? There's something wrong with me, like, that my thinking is like that. And so
That is because you've been beaten how many times?
Right.
Okay? And your cognitive ability is literally close to
part,
zero.
right there. So that there's a thing that they call your threat assessment.
Yes.
When you have so many brain injuries in a certain part of your brain as a child, your threat assessment decreases.
Right.
I have so many papers that I've written on
Yeah.
this, and it took me 25 years to get my associate's degree, but damn it, I did it.
And congratulations.
Thank you. And
Congratulations.
one of my teachers told me on the last course I was taking, I don't remember the topic of the course that I had to take, but I was writing a study. And she said, well, I really can't let you pass with this because I don't have anything to compare it to. I said, well, then you just have to fucking fail me. Because this is what I'm going to do, and I am not. She wasn't trying to be mean or anything, but she had rules to go by.
Yeah.
But she did tell me off the record, keep this, and when you get to graduate level, run it by them because this is very, very much needed. And so anyways, bottom line is this. Our decision-making has been altered. And I'm going to take it a step further. For you and for you. Anytime that you experience trauma, your emotional growth gets stunted.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can go beyond that, but there's this thing called complex PTSD. Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm.
So complex PTSD, for some of your listeners that might not know, is when a person experiences polytrauma victimization, which is many traumas that are happening to them and have no real support network to help pull them through it. And so they get these maladaptive coping skills that kind of leave them in a position to be vulnerable for other people who recognize that. Right. Because guess what? They also are in the same place experiencing the same thing. And so until we're able to learn that exists, like recently I saw a young 9-year-old boy who was hit by a car. And my first instinct was to respond. I went through nursing school. I'm always responding to car accidents. It's nothing new to me. But at the same time, it was the first time I ever realized that everyone else's emergency isn't my emergency.
Right.
There's a boundary, and I didn't have to get out of the car at that moment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me wishes that I didn't, because I cannot ever unsee what I saw.
Right.
And I wasn't ready for that, and but I can't change it. Mm-hmm. However, I did learn something from that now I have the capacity to understand different situations and see them from a different perspective.
Right.
That I never knew I had,
Right.
which is why I've shifted my focus from a purely human trafficking survivor platform to now I want to empower people who have brain injury to self-identify and be able to develop coping skills and coping mechanisms that are healthy until they can get help.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how many times do you hear someone say, I was human trafficked and I have a brain injury? No one ever says that.
They don't know.
You're the first person that I've ever spoken to, seen, or anything that has said what you've said, that, you know, and it makes total sense. I don't know why I never thought about it before.
I mean, thrown downstairs,
it
up
makes
against the
total
wall.
sense.
We don't get medical care. We don't get proper nutrition. We can't sleep. I mean, the list goes on. We have no support network. And if we go to the hospital,
Right.
That's if we go to the hospital. You know, we have excuses.
Of course.
And we don't follow up.
Of course.
You know, I have a poem that I wrote, and one of the lines in there is, you know, you treated me last night. I know you saw that I was black and blue, but you didn't say nothing. Like, what the fuck is your problem?
Yeah.
You know, we've come a long way in the medical field.
They turn such a blind eye to so many very crucial experiences. You know, there's this theory in psychology called the critical period. And from 0 to 6, a child is hardwired. So all of their experiences that they experience during that critical period, they're hardwired for life. So if they witness alcoholism in their family, if they witness physical and verbal abuse, if they witness anything that's traumatic or otherwise, they're hardwired for it. So by the time they get through that critical period, that's what they subconsciously seek out. Alcoholism. I see that because of my mother. She was addicted to pain meds. So I see that. So I saw nothing but her using, going to sleep, you know, strange hours, put the lights on. It's like, well, what's going on here? This is like a Tourette situation, right? But you're hardwired. So your life experiences are dictated because of that critical period. So I can't imagine how many young girls are out there and young boys that are out there right now that have gone through and are witnessing this because their parents' generational curses are going through this and are being treated this way. So they're growing up thinking, that was okay then. At least it looked okay then. I guess that's what I'm going to do. Or they get into these relationships where they're verbally and physically abused and they don't know any better because that's what they've experienced. They're hardwired for it.
Right. And then the sad part is that this is a kind of a controversial topic in the survivor community. Wording. You know, we don't want to call it hoeing. We don't want to call it prostitution. We want to call it this. We want to call it... Well, I call it whatever the fuck I want to call it because it was my experience. And if I want to say I was out there being a hoe, I'm going to call myself that because I don't do that today. It doesn't mean that's what you are. If you don't want to be called that, I won't call you that. But I'm saying...
I'm claiming it. I'm owning it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get caught up in these words, right? And words are important, but when we're thinking about human beings that are sharing an experience that is universal, until we can get to a place where we allow each individual to identify their own experience and not put a blanket over all of it, we're not really giving any life to healing in that person.
Right.
And which brings me back to the point you were saying about I've never heard a person say, I have a brain injury. And I'm human trafficking. But let me tell you something. I spend a lot of time with a lot of survivor leaders in this movement. Without, you know, violating anyone's confidentiality, I've had numerous leaders that have books upon books out that are in movie contracts, that are in just brilliant people who know my struggle, who know how it feels to be screaming at the top of their lungs and not being able to sleep and nothing makes any sense. And because they're so strong and the resilience in the survivor community is so overwhelming, everybody thinks we're fine. But we're not. Well, and then they give us a 7-year lifespan. We're not fucking crazy. We don't want to kill ourselves, but, you know.
We need help.
We need help. We need to study. And my whole goal with starting Area 25, which is the name of my project that I'm currently trying to work on.
Area 25?
Area 25.
Okay.
And the reason why I chose that is because I have a dear friend, Olivia, I love you. I'm sure you're going to listen to this. She's currently struggling herself with brain injury. And she knew that she had a brain injury before I did.
Wow.
So she's really the one that kind of... we meshed, and she didn't fit. People would cast her out, you know, because whatever, we look like liars, or I had a friend share with me one time that she would put stuff in her purse to pay for it. She didn't want to walk around, and then she'd leave out of the store and forget that she had it in there, but she started to remember, and so what she would do is go to the store person and say, listen, I'm not trying to steal, here's your stuff. please don't ever arrest me if I do this. I promise I'm coming back to give it to you. You know? But it's when you have to start realizing that there's got to be something that needs to be done. And so anxiety is one of the things that was very crippling for me.
Yeah. And it's very real.
Yes, it's very real. And I would be at the point where sometimes I was a fighter. I used to box. And I was always very aggressive.
Not you. You don't come across as
no,
angry.
not at all. I don't want to knock
Come on,
the fuck
Amy.
out.
No way.
But I got to a point where it began to make me be paralyzed. Like I couldn't move. I would get the tunnel vision, and the hearing would go. Everything starts turning black, and I couldn't control that. And I was very much a control freak.
Yeah.
And very much never moved by fear, but I would become scared because I couldn't control my own self, and that was a scary place for me. And so after my first round of brain treatments, in case anyone might want to know, it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation. I got my brain treatments at Kaizen Brain Center out here in San Diego. But I got my first round of treatments, and I was in a Dollar General in my old hometown. And I was standing there at the register, and then all of a sudden I started getting anxiety for no fucking reason. You know, like, here goes my hearing, and here goes, I'm like, oh, fuck, great, here we go.
Oh, man.
And the lady at the register asked me a question. And normally I probably would have froze. But in that very moment, whatever she said to me, I was going to answer her question, so it caused me to turn around and look for the answer, whatever it was. And when I looked back at her, it was gone. It was like, I didn't have the tunnel anymore, and I looked at her and I was like, I said, holy shit, my brain's working. She was like, huh? I was like, I don't know, my brain's working.
Oh, wow.
So I called my doctor and I was like, did you have people tell you this? And he said, yes.
Yeah.
It's one of the symptoms that they tell us happens, the improvement.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into it. And so there's this area, Brodmann's Area 25. So it's like an emotional control bank.
So there is the connection. Okay.
There's the connection. And I thought it would be cute to like make it approachable brain
and
injury.
catchy. And only those that are really educated about this would know.
Right. And so what Olivia and I did was we developed these little characters. And so we have the Cerebros. And they're two little homeboys. And then we got the Amygdagals. Two girls.
Cute.
And their brains.
Yeah.
So I haven't found my graphic designer yet. I tried to find one, but it wasn't.
Alberto, do you know anyone?
Plenty.
Okay. We can hook you up.
So we wanted to create a little comic book thing that would be a pair of them.
Yeah.
Each one of them's injured, one of them's not. Mm-hmm. And then, if somebody kind of like the Dear Abby thing, write in and tell us what are you suffering from when you're with your brain injury? What do you wish your friends knew? And then we're going to make it understandable by these comics,
We need to get you connected with Ellen before she retires.
Who's that?
Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh,
It's very easy to write into her show. You need to bring this cause to the forefront because she's a huge advocate of sex trafficking, like in terms of let's put a quash on this right now.
Oh, cool. That'd be neat.
Just hearing you talk and share just even like a fraction of your journey and what you've been through. First of all, I'm sorry that it happened to you. I'm sorry that society didn't protect you. And I tend to get choked up a little bit. My aunt was a victim as well, and she committed suicide. I'm sorry that people around you that said they cared for you didn't care for you the way that they should have. But the blessing in all of this is you survived. And you're here. And you're going to fucking fight for this cause, I can tell, because you're a fighter. Amidst everything you've been through, there isn't enough apologizing that can take place. There aren't enough things that can be done, but more needs to be done. What is it that you do, Amy, that allows you to stay strong just to be strong? Like, how do you get through all this? In hindsight, now that you've gone through so much, and your disposition in life, you could be really angry at people. You could be like, fuck you, world. You could be like a bat out of hell just wanting to destruct everything in its path, right? But you are so focused and so centered and so calm. What do you do to keep your mental health in check, to get through this?
I'm a humanitarian clown.
Yeah.
Hi. It's true. My name is Dragonfly the Unicorn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't tell about the unicorn at all.
I spent a lot. I spent time out at Gesundheit Institute with Patch Adams himself.
Yeah.
what an inspiring human being. When I saw that movie with Robin, that's when I kind of realized that there was something else inside of me that I didn't quite understand, just then. I knew there was something before, too, because when I was in Las Vegas, because I got trafficked from L.A. to Vegas, and then I ended up in juvenile hall because I ran away, and I told them, they said juvenile hall, that's what happens when you ran away, you go to juvenile hall. But the girls were in there just talking about their pimps and stuff, and I just was like,
no.
Why is this a thing? Why is this a thing?
Yeah.
And, so I've always been the one to speak up for injustice. I have a friend who tells me that I stuffed a boy in trash can in junior high. He must have been a bully. Mary, I didn't tell him that story. But
stuffed him in a trash can. He must have done something to deserve that.
Yeah, he must have. I mean, I was the one that picked on the bullies. And so just to give you a little picture, from the beginning of my journey trying to heal from brain injury, I've told anyone who I go into a room with that I'm not here by myself.
Yeah.
It makes me emotional.
Yeah. You've turned your mess into a message.
Because there's so many people who are suffering that don't have a voice, who will suffer still. There's so many people. My friend Jennifer Kempton, rest in peace, she started an organization to cover up brandings from traffickers. And she was so passionate. It's called Survivors Inc. It's kind of transitioning right now, but one of the things that she said to me right before she passed away, something's not right. Something's not right. And, to paint a better picture for you, have you seen the movie Monster with Charlize Theron?
Yes.
I don't want any more monsters made of us because she was a victim.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
10,000%.
wow. And that
she
movie
said-
is profound.
She said in her interview, she said, I want you guys to remember that they're killing a raped woman. And they let me kill those men. And I absolutely believe it, 100%. She was not lying. I felt her.
Yeah.
I would like to see her posthumously exonerated personally.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's another fight for another time.
Right.
I don't want any more monsters made of us. And I want everyone to know, like, when I go into my doctor's office, you have to know that it's not just me here.
Yeah.
And I make everyone acknowledge that when I go in the room because my friends are counting on me.
Yeah.
Right.
And
People you don't know, strangers.
people that I don't know.
You're affecting a lot of lives. Yeah.
Even I had an enemy, someone who, because of my aggressiveness, I went for her because first of all, I tried to be nice and tell her, sit down, you're too young, you don't know what you're doing, you're going to burn yourself out. But she didn't listen, so I wanted to be the boss, She was inspired by my brain treatments, and then she went and got brain treatments. And I was just like, wow, how humbling, because now I'm different, I'm not that aggressive, angry person, and it's been a very humbling and powerful journey, but it's also been empowering.
Yes.
And I believe that anyone who gets the right tools and has the right knowledge can be empowered.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I did on social media was I started asking people, in your words, what is it like having brain injury? And I have this vision of a book I want to create. And some of the answers I got were so profound. One guy said, it's like trying to get gum out of your hair with mittens on.
Oh, wow.
Somebody else said, it's like waking up to a new person every day, but knowing that that person is going to have to fight to be okay. And, someone else said it's like being... Mama Bear. Every day I feel like Mama Bear, and it's just
Many different facets that just kicks in.
someone said a terribly bad idea because his brain injury came from driving under the influence.
Yeah.
I mean, just so when I hear those words, I know exactly what the fuck that feels like.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to only be able to paint. For a while, all I could do when COVID first happened, excuse me, my nose is running really bad. When COVID first came, isolation is terrible for me.
Yeah.
I don't do isolation because then I'm alone with my thoughts that don't really make sense. So I had to start painting. I started with painting on my walls, and then I started figuring out all this stuff about a vaccine and all this other stuff. And, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, as people say, whatever, I won't give my opinion because this isn't the forum for it. But I was like writing on maps and telling my kids this and that, and and they're like, okay, Mom, yeah, okay, okay, Mom, just, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
But it was hard for me.
Yeah.
And so then all I could do was lock myself in my room and just paint.
Yeah.
And
So that's your therapy. Painting is what kind of keeps you, because, and a lot of modalities too, when it comes to any sort of psychiatric condition or disorder, painting is one of the modalities that I use because it allows you to trust again. Because it's you and the paintbrush, you're trusting the process, and with that is equine therapy, where you ride horses.
God, yes, that's
you
my
ride
favorite.
you ride horses, and it helps you trust. I know that because of my eating disorder, it helps you trust. You're getting on an animal that you have to trust will take care of you. You trust that it will not hurt you.
And you have to be comfortable on that animal because they can feel everything you do.
Yeah. So there's a lot of modalities.
Yeah.
I have to tell you really quick a story about Storm the racehorse. I have a friend who she would rescue racehorses, retired racehorses. And right before I was getting ready to start my brain treatments, I was just coming from Patch Adams' camp and our farm, and I met Storm the racehorse, and he had leg splints so bad that he could barely stand up, but he came over and he walked up to the fence, and we had this look, and it was like he was telling me, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
I have pictures of it.
Yeah.
They had to put him to sleep.
Yeah. But he did his thing.
He did his job, and it was like, I feel like that moment was just for me.
No, it was. And animals know.
That's why when you said equine therapy, yes, horses are, I believe in spirit animals, and horses are one of them, and he was the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. Yeah. And I rode the other horses that were there, and I took photos with them, but he humbled me in a place that I didn't even know I could be humbled. But and then she almost had him put to sleep on my birthday, but I told her it was my birthday. I was like, no, you can't do that. She was like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I won't. Is there a tissue around here?
Yeah, we're actually going to wrap up. I know that you're gosh, so much good information here, and we definitely need to continue to focus on the awareness that needs to be done here. A lot needs to be done here, not just with the sex trafficking trade, but with the brain injuries associated that is so prevalent, and we need to somehow take a stand for it. And all the information that we're going to have posted down below, people will
say something really quick about that.
Yeah.
I want to shift away from awareness, though, because everybody knows stuff, right? Now we got to go to action with the awareness.
Yeah.
It's kind of a paired thing.
Yeah.
Knowing something, that's why I try to break it down into bite-sized nuggets and add humor and stuff like that, because it's such a huge rock.
Yeah.
Who the hell wants to carry it when they leave the room? I don't want to carry that shit around. I don't want to think about it if I don't have to, right? So we could do, there is small things people can do, you know?
That's what I'm saying. So if people, when we have your information available, people will reach out to you, and you can definitely get them in touch with people who can help them, that can actually take action on this and help them. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your experience, albeit a tragic experience. And my heart hurts for those that are out there going through this right now. My heart hurts for the inaction that is taking place. My heart hurts for the action and turning a blind eye that is taking place. My heart hurts for the families that are affected, whether they have a loved one that was, experiencing this and that has traumatic brain injury because of it. Bottom line is, it's not something that needs to continue on anymore. It needs to be dealt with. And the only way we can deal with it is by spreading awareness and taking action. So, Amy, I'm grateful for your experience. I'm sorry you went through it, but you are now literally turning your mess into a message. And I can't say emphatically enough how honored we are that you took the time to come out and share your story and to be transparent with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
For those of you who are, this even hurts to even acknowledge this, that are experiencing this right now, or if you know someone that's experiencing this right now, there is hope and there is help. Surround yourself with those who can actually help you instead of acknowledging that you're going through. Acknowledging is one thing, but taking it a step further and acting on that acknowledgement. As always, San Diego, we strive to come and bring you informative topics. A lot of times they're fun and lighthearted, but under contract doesn't mean fun and lighthearted all the time. It means you got to get in there and get into the shit, the real shit that our country, our society, our world are covering up as if it doesn't exist and hoping it'll go away. We'll have information for you. If you know anybody, there's help. Peace out, San Diego.
Deuces.